Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone online. Thanks for everyone joining us in person today. We've got a joint meeting with the Regional Advisory Council. Got a lovely meeting ahead of us today, so I'm just going to keep us on track. Elaine, would you do the roll call?
You bet, I will do that. And if everyone will speak up, there is a microphone up there on the camera, and it does pick you up pretty well. So just make sure that other folks can hear you. So first we'll do the executive board. Alexis.
Here.
Dale Reynolds.
Here.
Jordan Morales.
Here.
Lauren McLean.
Here.
Eric Phillips. Rick Hogaboo.
Here.
Joe Steer. Come on. Todd LaVoy. Tom Daly.
Here.
Vance McGinnis Brown.
Here.
We do have a quorum of the executive board. RAC members. Susan Bradley. Susan, are you online? See her. Samantha Semple Kenny. Laylo Hammond. Andrew Mills.
Here.
Mary Beth Nutty.
Here.
Deanna Solis. Teresa Botter.
Here.
David White.
Here.
We do not have a quorum, but we're
We're
in discussion. We're not making any. Okay. All right.
All right, so we've got our first motion. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Second. Moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are action items and will have to be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items. Executive board member requests that it be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. I haven't heard or seen any requests for that. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so we're going to move on to our section 4, the executive board action items. This is the proposed agenda for the board of directors April meeting. Elaine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So on page 78 of your packet, you have the proposed agenda. Pretty simple stuff. The minutes. This is the meeting where we'll do both our performance report and customer service report to the full board. So this is for the board of directors itself, not the executive board. And then we'll have our cash balance. So we're finally through the worst of the challenges with the VRT implementation. So we should have a cash balance report for you and a budget variance report. And then public involvement in notifications policy. This will be on the consent agenda. It's just an update. As I noted, we've been updating policies to make sure that we've got all the things cleaned up, like the executive director and CEO and those kinds of things. And then an updated holiday schedule. This year, we're proposing some more limited service on a couple of other days. And as we lean into supplemental services for events, this seems to be the right direction to go. And then action items, we did do a full review of pay and step scales this year. So this will present to you in time for us to build that into the budget. Then we'll have nominations for the secretary treasurer. As you remember, we did not fill that position when we filled the board positions. Acquisition of services contract. Yeah, can you let somebody let Mayor Phillips in? Thank you. This is our Beyond Access service, and we've gone back out to bid on it to change some of the wording in it so that we better meet compliance with the things that FDA has told us we need to do. We're excited about that. Web content accessibility guidelines. I think all of you probably are also dealing with this, although we don't have to implement it until April of 27. What we'd like to do is get the policy in place now so that we can then work through the next year to actually get it implemented correctly. And then also present the Napa Caldwell Transit Oriented Development Study. You all commented on it a few months ago. That's why we put it on consent today. We'll go through the full thing again with the additions that you all commented on earlier for the board. And then information items, we're going to schedule a board training on Transit 101. So we'll just present that for anyone who's interested and go over it briefly for all board members so you guys get a review of the things that are in it. And then a report on supplemental services. Really, you guys got the preview last month. It's really been successful this year. So with that, we'd like to have permission to add anything that may come up in terms of the contract that we want to get signed. And we are asking for acceptance of this agenda for next board meeting. So a motion on that.
If there's not any questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve this as presented.
Second, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Next is the RAC handbook and bylaws. I did not do a presentation. We do have a very detailed memo in your packet. Jason, I'll get there in just a minute. It's page 79 of your packet. So we took this to the RAC, the RAC Council at their last meeting. They were in favor of the changes as we presented them here. The summary is that RAC is your only standing committee. It's governed by both bylaws and a handbook. We identified both some places that needed updated and also that it will be easier to separate the bylaws and handbook into two documents. And further that we take some things out of the handbook and put them in by reference rather than putting them right in so that you don't have to amend it every time those things change. So after discussion on those items, the RAC recommended accepting the changes. We had recommended going to 1-year terms on leadership, line up with the board and executive board. RAC determined after some discussion that it's better to stay with 2 years, but go ahead and accept the idea that there's a succession to that leadership. So I thought that was a nice in-between. So RAC governance is just that better define what that leadership means, what their responsibilities are, and adopt a policy that the vice chair moves to chair, the chair moves to past chair, and the elections each year are for every other year are for a new vice chair who will then succeed to chair. Pretty simple ones. RAC membership, the handbook identified that 2/3 of the members should be from Ada County, 1/3 from Canyon County. We think that's still the right split. It didn't have two things in it that we thought were important. One, it didn't identify disability as a major interest to be represented. And also, many members should be on RAC, and it didn't define a role for the CEO. And so we made 3 changes. We've added the word disability so that's clearly an interest that we expect to be represented. We have identified that the CEO will become an ex officio member of the RAC, which is a pretty typical construct if you look around at these kinds of subcommittees. And we've identified that the maximum number of RAC members would be 20, or would be 15, and the minimum number would be 10, rather than having no number identified. So again, we think that piece is a really good change. RAC subcommittees. Right now, it identifies in the bylaws that there can be subcommittees, doesn't define what they'd be for or what their purpose would be, nor does it define any governance for them. And so we proposed that we clarify the reference in the bylaws, and then we put a section in the handbook itself that doesn't just identify that there can be subcommittees, but identifies the purpose of them, why they would be chosen, how they would be chosen, who could serve on them, and what the governance of them would be. Again, we think these are good changes. Once the subcommittee is chosen, we will allow members who are not members of RAC, if the purpose for them will be a focus area that needs more investigation, and either through immediate implementation of a task force or just an ad hoc subcommittee, try and go get more knowledge, more discussion on particular items. So we've identified that non-RAC members could be added to those subcommittees if they have the expertise and knowledge needed for that particular subject. It wouldn't be, they couldn't be a majority of them. In fact, we would only recommend that there be one or two at the most on these subcommittees, so that we get the information we need. We've also identified that the CEO will recommend and the RAC leadership will confirm whoever the chair of that subcommittee is, and then identified the procedures for running meetings once you have that. We expanded officer responsibilities, just a bit to note that the vice chair will serve in place of the chair if the chair is not available, or if neither is available, that the past chair will serve in that to preside over meetings. Again, pretty simple one, but those were not identified as officer responsibilities. And then meeting calendars used to be published in the handbook, and every year we had to amend the handbook to add the meeting calendar for the year. So instead of doing that, we've identified the typical meeting calendar in the handbook and identified that once the meeting calendar is adopted, it will be published in a noticed meeting, the next RAC meeting, and also on our website for the year, so the public has access to it if they want to attend. And then finally, in the advisory process, there's a fairly big section about what the purpose of the RAC is and the kinds of things that they should advise on. The list of issues did not mention customer experience or reference the interests of the council member requirements. We think those are important interests of this subcommittee. And so we now have listed those in there. It also didn't specify that as they were fulfilling their advisory duties, they should specifically really address the kinds of issues that the interests that they're there representing should bring to the table. Again, just kind of amping up what the purpose of the advisory committee is a little bit. They've been doing that, but it wasn't defined anywhere. And then instead of having references with excerpts from various documents that we've asked the RAC to review for us, we've referenced what those documents are, and we now have an appendix with a list of them and links to where to find them. Again, that way we don't have to amend the document if those references change, get updated, for instance. And then we've added 3 appendix. One just identifies the key staff support for RAC, who those staff members are, so that RAC knows who they can ask questions of or go to if they have needs. Also, a description of why an ad hoc subcommittee or task force would be formed, what their purpose would be, because that didn't exist anywhere. And then that list of key supporting documents with the links. So a lot of changes, but actually we think pretty reasonable ones. In your packet, you have the new document You have a red line of the old document. The new document has also been reorganized and put in our new format. And then the bylaws have been separated. You have the new bylaws and again, a red line of the old bylaws. So that all of you can see exactly where these changes are if you're interested. With that, I'd stand for questions.
Perfect. Questions for Elaine? Anybody online?
Good.
Oh, Commissioner Davis.
The staff is by position, not by name, correct? For the same reason the other was, but you wouldn't have to change it.
Right,
But
exactly. Yeah, we've referenced it by position. And that's why we also put it as independent.
All right, well, if there's no other questions, is there a motion?
Andrew Mills, proposed to accept I can't think of the words right now.
So Andrew, I think we have to have an executive board member. That's what the last call for.
Did you just promote yourself?
Madam Chair, I have a question of our.
Yes, of course.
So on the RAC membership, you say no fewer than 10, no more than 15. Is it left intentionally flexible in perpetuity? So you just fill within the 10 to 15. We don't need to identify right now a number within 10 to 15.
Yes, we've learned over the years, we've had everywhere from 9 to 14 members. And we found when we only had 9, it really wasn't enough to get the discussion going we needed. And 15 makes it so we can do the 1/3, 2/3 easier. So yes, it was left intentionally vague, but within a band in which we think we can get the kind of input we're looking for.
Follow up, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. I just didn't know how literal you are with the 2/3, 1/3, because if you're a math nerd like me, the only way you get to 2/3, 1/3 is with 8 and 4 with a 12 plus. And then if you're saying that the disability person is an addition within the 15, as well as the CEO as an ex officio. So I don't know if that's within the 15. So it seems like you would have 12 plus the 1 plus the 1 to 14, or you would need to allow some flexibility. So I would not object if you're slightly off the 2/3, 1/3, but but if you're going to have a literalistic 2/3, 1/3, there's only one way to get there.
Yeah. That's a really good point, and I think it would not make would actually make sense to amend it just slightly to say, and with I don't know what the vagueness would be of some language, and we could take that direction and bring it back the direct language if you'd like.
Yeah. I know the intent. You might be off by 1 either way, and it skews the 2/3, 1/3, but it might. I would not object to that. I just would want to prevent a future objection. The 2/3, 1/3 is in dispute. Someone's trying to get one more of it equal out. That was my only concern.
Appreciate that.
Any other questions or
Is there a motion yet?
no?
Okay,
Is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the draft handbook of bylaws update with the the amendment proposed.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so we've got information items, and this first one is going to be the RAC update.
So, Madam Chair, we're told that the bus has arrived, and if we want the demonstration of the new charging, now would be the time to do it. If we
Oh,
can
let's do it.
take the break, whatever.
All right.
Okay, all right. We'll do that in just a few.
Were you wearing heels?
Heels.
Flaps.
I know, I saw your name.
That's just in life. Yeah. I think that's because you're a mom. I mean, that's because you're a mom. Okay, yeah. That's a bigger mistake.
Awesome.
It's time to grab some lunch. Hi, Deborah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, because that's not be able to see the slide.
I don't know.
And that's something that I think if we get to, that's basically, I'm sure it's online, like did Susan Bradley join or Sam?
That's a big money or?
I could also say to like the more urban. Yeah. That's very important.
Sorry to get you off that, but-
Okay. Well, I would love to, yeah. Right. So we're back from our little field trip.
My little field.
Thanks, Elaine. Thanks, Martin. Thanks, Martin, for field trip.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna go back to the RAC update. Good.
Thank you.
Very good. Is the vice chair of the RAC. Walter, our chair, is on an extended trip around the world at the moment, so he's not here for you. He really is. He's in Africa.
Wow. And you didn't call in?
Can you believe it? The nerve. Well, good morning. Thank you all for being here and for giving us this opportunity to share what the Regional Advisory Committee, the council, has been doing over this last year, what we intend on doing this upcoming year. And also we're going to have a conversation about bus stops and that first and last mile to the bus stop. As Elaine said, I'm the vice chair of the council. I keep wanting to say committee. I don't even know what that's all about. Also, I wanted to be noted that I am an active transportation advocate because when you take the bus, I have yet to take a bus where they stop right in front of my house. I'm hoping we can work on this, but you have to be able to walk and bicycle safely to your bus stop. So that advocacy that I do, I'm on the ACHD Bicycle Advisory Committee. I'm the chair of that committee. It goes hand in hand so perfectly. And last night, for a little bit of light reading, I read through Kate Dahl, a staff member at VRT. She did the Caldwell Napa study, and I read through that, and she points to people being able to walk and bike to their bus stops. So this is very important. So these are the things that we're going to go over. As Elaine said, we are the only standing committee to VRT and to the board. Our mission is to use a customer-centered focus to ensure that VRT's policies, services, and outreach meet the mobility needs of the community. Oh, good, Jason, look at you. You're so on top of things. Thank you. So here are the things that we have been involved in over the last year. A lot of times, by the time you all receive different things that need to be approved, they have already come in front of us, and we have given our input on that. We gave input on marketing and outreach campaigns, the residential pass program, funding requests and challenges, supplemental services and events, economic development and transit. And for that, we did the Caldwell tour, which was so fascinating to see what the city of Caldwell is doing in their mobility. Letter of recommendation template and process, bus stop design guidelines. This is a conversation that we have been having for several years. You know, it's just not enough when you're establishing a route to put a pole in the ground and call it good and think that people are going to be comfortable and feel safe riding. The service changes and the transportation development and operations plan, digital accessibility and updated Department of Justice standards. And as Elaine just went over, the membership renewals, leadership elections, and handbook updates. So that's what we've been going over this last year. So coming up, we intend on working on the Compass Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan update. Say that 2 times fast. That's a mouthful, Dan. That's gonna be a big project just based on the name. Fare box update.
It'll be.
So long. Fare box updates, real-time arrival signage at bus stops, Valley Connect 3.0 update, funding education efforts, and continuance of the bus stop typology. We will be, again, as Elaine alluded to, with some of these items, we'll create, the new word is, I'm going to say subcommittees because there's a new word. Oh, task force committees. So we will be getting the, because a lot of these things can be very extensive conversations that won't be able to take place in our actual meetings. We have so many items in our meetings that it'll have to be a separate group. Here's the other thing too, is that if any of you all ever have any ideas of things that you would like us to discuss or look into, please email me, Lane, Jason, Walter, Steve. Be very open to hearing what you all, or Deborah, right? Or Deborah, all of us. Because it's important that we work together so that public transit is successful in the Treasure Valley. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later too, about that collaboration. So, oh, there you are. You're already ahead of me. We're going to start talking about stops. Okay. This bus stop is at 23rd and State Street in Boise. A month and a half ago, a man, I heard about a man who was walking down the sidewalk and a vehicle, somebody who had been drinking, drove up on the sidewalk and hit and killed that man. My very first thought when I heard the location, 23rd and State, is that there's a bus stop there. And it's a pretty busy bus stop. I don't think it has one of the higher counts on State Street, but it's a busy bus stop. And I was very concerned, of course. And I went down, I biked down there a couple days later just to kind of take a look at it. Because don't you all wonder when different things happen? What were the circumstances? What happened that this horrible crash happened in an area where a pedestrian should feel safe? So I bicycled down there and you can see just a little bit at the bottom of the screen, you can kind of see the chalk mark where the tires went. You can see on the back of the bench where it was nicked. If you look beyond there to the right, you can see where the car eventually ended up. Though that was a concrete sign, pillars, totally destroyed them. Okay. Oh, did you do? Stephen, thank you.
Those were straight up. They're not.
Yeah, thank you for
I
that.
was looking at that too.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. So Jason, could you go to the next slide, please? All right. So that's the actual intersection of 23rd. You know what? I'm going to get up here. Because I really want you to see this. So 23rd and State. 23rd has bicycle lanes headed both north and south. Okay, there's a right turn lane, there's a left turn lane. It actually comes to a T. On this side right here, you can kind of see the curb ramp. There is a pathway that leads into the residential neighborhood. This is all residential here. This is residential here. There's residential over here. But it leads to a pathway that people can walk and bicycle on. So for State Street, I'm going to switch to the other side again. On State Street, you can see 2 lanes that way, 2 lanes this way. You have a right turn lane right there. So now here, you can see the chalk marks for the vehicle, okay, where it rode up onto the sidewalk. Next one, please. Okay, that's my cute bike. So here you can get even more of a view as far as how far that car traveled along the sidewalk. Here it is right here. Here's the first thing that could have stopped that vehicle from being on the sidewalk. This tree right here. There is nothing right here to stop any vehicle from driving up on the road. So there's that. Could you go to the next one, please? Okay, so I wanted to do a close-up because you got to wonder, how did this happen? How did this person, granted, they were intoxicated, but this is an incredibly wide intersection. I know that this section of State Street is on ACHD 5-year work plan to have that section of the street worked on, and I believe the sidewalk in that area also. But it is so wide, it's almost like an invitation if somebody's not paying attention to drive up on that sidewalk. That's it for that one, right? And there is a point to this.
And
Because
VRT is working with ACHD. There will be some improvements to this intersection. We'll be able to show you relatively soon what we're planning.
here's a thing also, is that a lot of people will say, well, we can't keep people from doing, I'm going to say stupid, but also aggressive behavior, destructive behavior. I mean, the only thing that's in place to keep people from doing stuff like that is law enforcement. However, I did read something, Washington State in their Department of Transportation, they had something written in there that we can't prevent people from making these misjudgments. However, we can design and build a system that reduces the likelihood of a fatality. You know, for something like that to go that far without some kind of a vertical element to stop somebody from driving up on a sidewalk in a very wide intersection with all of those different turn lanes. When we design and build streets, things like that should be taken into consideration. If we want people to take the bus, we need to provide a safe environment for them to be able to get to their bus stop and to wait for their bus stop without feeling that their safety is at risk.
I would like to draw your attention also to a bus stop in Nampa. And I've talked about 12th before, but there's another 150, Route 150 picking up sometimes at the post office. And there's no real safe way to get across the street to there. And that was what I was thinking in Nampa, and I don't. But, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And we're going to talk about that too, Andrew. Like, what are those things that need to be considered?
That bench is always wet somehow. I don't know why.
Oh, I really did. Mayor, were you going to say something?
So you're talking about like putting bollards
Yes.
along areas like that?
That is a possibility too. You know, also, tree canopy. Tree canopy is something also to consider. I know it's something that Boise has been working on, the tree canopy program. You know, that provides a vertical barrier. In addition to that, it provides shade. I take the bus on State Street a lot. And when you wait for a bus on State Street, you're surrounded by concrete. And I'm talking more west. I'm not talking downtown. But when you start going out west, State Street, you are surrounded by concrete. So imagine it is 90 degrees. You are surrounded by concrete. There's 5 lanes of traffic. It is incredibly hot. You know, having a tree canopy provides that's shaped. You know, and the other thing I want to mention too, when we talk about, because we're going to start talking about amenities, we should not look at amenities as some kind of a luxury item for people riding the bus. It is essential. It is a necessity. You know, if we want people to take the bus, we need to provide these necessities, these almost like bare essentials. It's not a comfort thing. You know, it's not a luxury thing. So yes, Mayor, you're right. Bollards, trees, there's other things, you know, you could do some fencing, some metal fencing. I've seen that in various areas that may run in an area like that to prevent people from driving up. But thank you for that.
And as we've been working on this intersection with HHD, we're also looking at extending the curbs, changing the geometry of it so that as a car comes up, it's clear from the geometry that they've got in their vision that they can't go that direction. There's a lot of things without the physical barrier that you can do just on the design of the street that also will help people be safer, both in their cars and on the sidewalk.
Absolutely. Thank you, Elaine. Yeah, I mean, I wish the picture could have captured just how incredibly unnecessarily wide that intersection is. And I don't know if that was maybe something that was done 40, 50 years ago when that road came to a T at State Street, that they just, in putting in the turn lanes, it became wide. So here's the next thing we're going to look at. So this is Valley Connect 2.0. This was something that you all approved in 2018. I think it was 2018.
Yeah.
But as far as looking at where current routes go, where based on the growth of the Treasure Valley, where those routes would be proposed to go. Currently, VRT is finalizing. I believe they're finalizing, right? Okay. Valley Connect 3.0, that will come in front of you. There was a subcommittee of people that worked on this with the consultant, and they represented all of the municipalities, various agencies, and giving feedback on what that's going to look like. So the reason why I asked Jason to put this up is you all have so much power in deciding what these streets are going to look like. And this map here, the Valley Connect 3.0, is something that should be referenced when working on those roads, to look at that and see, is this a road that is going to be served by public transit? Because if that's the case, you need to ensure that people feel safe walking, biking, standing at the bus stop. So I read through Valley Connect 2.0 last night, also just to refresh myself on, I read so many documents last night, but just to refresh myself on what's on there. And it's very clear in giving guidance on what can be done to have a successful route. Again, it's more than just putting a pole in the ground. If we really want this to work, there are so many different factors that play into this. So I'm going to go over just a couple of things. I'm going to talk about the infrastructure things that can be done to ensure that people are safe when they're moving to and from their bus stops. And then I'm going to open up discussion to our RAC members to talk about the actual bus stop. Like, what are those essentials that need to be in place? Sidewalk gaps. If you have a sidewalk in your community and then all of a sudden comes to an end and the person, their bus stop is all the way down there, they are forced to walk in the road, on the street, on a shoulder. It's important to get those sidewalk gaps filled. The separation of the sidewalk from traffic lanes. This is important with arterials like State Street, Chinden Boulevard, Cleveland.
Napa Caldwell.
Napa Caldwell, yeah. Very essential to have a separation between the sidewalk and the travel lanes on those arterials. The bus that I took this morning was State Street, getting more west, close to Glenwood. And people travel very fast. And when you're standing there looking into their cars, it is alarming how many people are actually not looking at the road. So it's important to have that. And where I waited, there was nothing. There was nothing to prevent people from driving up and hitting me. There was no separation. Not only that, the sidewalk on each side of the pad was flush with the pavement, no curb. And I could see the tracks from where people drive up on that little section of sidewalk that's flush with it. I appreciate VRT and all the work that they do. I loathe that bus stop. I really do, because I feel unsafe, because I know it takes a moment for somebody to drive up and hit a person waiting at that stop. So curbs, high visibility crosswalk. I know that Kate Dahl referenced that in the Napa Caldwell. That they have high visibility crosswalks that people can really see them. And when they start to fade, because they do, when motor vehicles are traveling over them, you can kind of see where the wheels travel. It's really important to keep that paint there when it starts to fade. Put that in place so that people can cross. Leading pedestrian interval lights, the LPI. I know that Ada County has been putting those in. I think that Napa and Caldwell have done a couple of intersections where they have an LPI. And what that does is when a person hits the walk signal, it gives them a couple seconds to get out into the crosswalk before the lights for the motorists turn green, just so those pedestrians are visible. And I can firsthand tell you that it makes a huge difference, just those couple of seconds. So when you're redoing an intersection, you're replacing a light, because when you replace an entire light, can you put an LPI on there without replacing the entire signal? Do you know?
I don't know for sure, but there is an extensive amount of wiring and updating that has to happen. It has to be accessible, fully accessible when you do an LPI.
Okay.
So that can be a barrier cost wise.
Okay.
But not putting it in an older.
Okay. However, I know that a lot of the signals in Ada and Canyon County are very old, like almost as old as me. So if you're replacing those, to replace it with an LPI, that's going to help the safety of your riders. And the more you do to ensure the safety of people getting to their stops, the more likely they are going to be to ride public transit. So that's all I'm going to go over with for infrastructure. There's so much more that I could say, but I'm going to open it up to our RAC members to share.
I have some other pictures.
Oh, we're going to go over that in a second. Thank you for putting it on that one. If the RAC members could share, what is it that makes for a good bus stop? Go ahead, Andrew.
Right now, in the, at the Caldwell line, there's a button you can push that lets you catch on demand, like if it's on the wrong side.
Oh.
The only issue is when I get to the other side, there's still cars stopping. I have to point to myself, walk down the road.
Oh, right.
Like maybe have a button on the other side that stops it.
Okay, I don't know if such a thing exists, but that's something to look at. But actually, what we want to visit is the bus stops themselves. Like, what are those essential things that a bus stop should have.
So if I could on that one, just for those of you who don't know, Andrew's in Canyon County, and he uses both the Beyond Access system, but also extensively uses the on-demand bus system in Canyon County. You schedule a stop and you're directed to a virtual stop, and many of them do not have infrastructure at them. And so one of the things we've been challenging ourselves with is how do we do better with those virtual stops on that on-demand system so that the users can feel safe and can access the particular side of the street that we're asking them to go to. So it's a point well noted.
There's also, I emailed the Buffalo City Council a while back, and I got Mr. Mills, ironically enough. He said keep the name, and also like the sidewalk was dented there, and I fell. And so I let him know about it, and all I got was a little bit of white paint on there. So.
So that's the curb ramp.
Yeah.
Where's that?
Okay.
It's at 1612 South Kimball Avenue, like.
Is that where we're doing our project, Andrew? I can't remember. Anyway, we'll check with you.
So Andrew, thank you for bringing that up. Curb ramps, that's another thing that I forgot to discuss. For people who are in a wheelchair, who take the bus, that's essential for them to be able, for their mobility, period. Elderly people who have walkers, for them to be able to access. Parents with strollers. You have a senior who wants to go on a grocery trip. They have those little carts that they take along with them. There are a wide variety of people who ride buses. And so having a curb ramp that is safe in place is essential. Yeah. David, did you have something?
Yeah, I wouldn't even consider writing it if I knew that, there wasn't a place to sit, place to block the wind, or when it's the elements are block the rain. Yeah.
There's a coffee shop right next to the bus stop. They got a
Work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, right behind you is just what you're pointing to. The bench, the shelter. That particular shelter has artwork on it. I know there's some really incredible shelters with artwork throughout the counties. That's placemaking, having artwork in the community. You could see the light up above too. That is also very essential. I know I've waited for buses in the dark. There are no street lights. It helps the bus driver to see the riders, and it makes you feel safe having a light. Was there anything else, David?
No, a lot of it was just around safety stuff, but you covered.
Do you
Tracy?
have any sort of a QR code or something we could put up? So if there's an issue at a bus stop, right? I mean, it'll go to the municipality, but hey, you scan it, report a problem.
We don't yet. That's a great point. We finally completed a full bus stop inventory. So we now have, and if you'll look at the sign there, when we put these new signs up, we identified every bus stop with a code. So we know exactly where it is. So that one is AB2 or AB something. And so now we're finally at a place logistically where we could do a QR code and it would be useful, it would actually work. And we've had those discussions internally, but we haven't done anything.
Just to piggyback on that, so we do have a QR code internally for our drivers and the operators and staff to report those kind of things. We're testing it internally. Eventually it will be rolled out to the public where they can scan a QR code and send something if there's an issue with the bus
So
stop.
we can crowdsource it as well.
Yeah, and then we just funnel it to whatever station.
Yeah, it'll come to VRT and then we can add like an email group list to certain stops and it would automatically go to them.
Mayor Phelps, ACHD, we do that. Structure too, so it's a really great way for folks to report things out. So, yeah, great suggestion.
Thank you, Mayor Phillips. That is a great idea. And I'm happy to hear that, Leslie. One of the conversations I had with Stephen right after I came here on my bus is that I noted all the trash in by my bus stop because there is no trash can, which is kind of another essential sort of thing. We talked about how that could be addressed. So that's a great idea. Thank you. Teresa?
You hit a lot of the really good ones, Mary Beth. I was just gonna say that when you have us, that's very close to where I live, and I think that is a nice example of sort of the basics of you've got something that's very obvious too, when you're someone who is maybe thinking about taking the bus or considering it can be a pretty daunting task if you've never done that before. So that makes it just something that's very easy to see. There's a place for you to sit. You can see the sign. Feel pretty good about that. So, and that the trash can, I think, is just the other thing that is a little bit more challenging always to pick up, but that's always something good to have to see the trash near where they're at.
There's something I don't like about that bench. It's a bit of a hostile architecture looking in that it has 3 or 2 bumps in it so that someone can't lie down. Like if they were really tired.
The benches we own are the benches we own, and as we replace them, we can talk about that. But they are quite expensive. They're about $1,000 a piece so that they last. And it is a strategy that transit agencies all over the country have used to avoid loitering at bus stops. And I don't, it's unfortunately sort of the world we live in, and we do have to deal with it though.
So I was just gonna say, it's intentionally to prevent people from lying down on the bench because it ends up taking the whole bench from other people who would want to sit down possibly.
I've never seen a bench that long before.
And I follow what you're saying, Andrew, but I think an advantage to having something like that is that you don't have one person then monopolizing it, just setting their stuff down and their stuff on each side. That if you have 3 people who want to have a seat there, if you have a busier stop, I know like the stop at Walmart there on State Street is one of the busier stops. It can provide a place for multiple people to sit.
But I want to sit there with saddlebags.
Mhm.
No.
Can you advance to the next couple slides, Jason? So we just wanted to show a couple of really great bus stops. Ooh, I love this bus stop. This is that Maine or Fairview? I never can keep those straight.
That one's
Okay.
That's actually Maine.
Is that Maine? Okay, because it has the same thing, Maine and Fairview on the one ways as you're going into Boise or going out of Boise. It's great. You have your benches, the shelter, you have a trash can. You have the fencing right there. There's also, they have a little curb ramp for pedestrians when they're coming off of the bus so that they can access the street. They have that there, so they have a specific place to cross. The thing that I love about this a lot is you have a place for a bicyclist to go behind there. As someone who bikes on places that have bike routes, it can be a little alarming when the bus needs to pull over and drop over their people and you are right in their path. That is a sweet bus stop because you have the multiple users in that area and they all have defined places on where they should be and nobody's safety is going to be at risk. That's a great bus stop.
The other thing about this stop, for those of you who haven't experienced one of these, has a 9-inch curb, which is not quite level boarding, but our buses have a feature called kneeling. And so typically the step into the bus is at 13 inches. They can kneel to 9 inches. So it's level or near level boarding. So for people with ambulatory issues, it makes it much easier for them to use. Now, the good at that is that curb is quite an impediment to a driver. We've had a few of them hit, and it does a lot of damage to a car if you hit it. The good thing about that is it really does protect the people who are waiting for the bus.
And I would say that it hasn't been We saw some initial crash.
Initially, yeah, not as many
When we
lately.
first installed it, but not as many lately, right? Because drivers learned and
Yeah,
there was some like markings. that
and
we
we've
put on there.
learned how to better delineate them so drivers can see them more easily, which slows them down, which is good. Anyway, there's a lot of good things about them.
Yeah, that's a great stuff. Thank you. Mayor, did you?
Sorry.
Okay.
Oh,
I might
last
also note that, so these do have the older signs. This is an older picture. So these stops, many of these stops, I mean, all of them have the new bus stop blades, but a lot of them will have real-time information signs. We're doing a pilot that shows real-time arrivals at the stops, which is another huge reliability element for riders, is knowing exactly when their bus is coming. So you can kind of get a live update of bus arrivals. We have those at 7 or 8 stops around the area to test how that is going on the street.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that, Elaine. I forgot about that. That is a great feature. Is there another slide or is that? Oh, that's a great.
Bobby,
Yeah, that is another great stop showing artwork. Again, placemaking, identifying a community.
what's the call?
Yeah, and this was the first, if I may jump in.
Oh, Jason, yeah, do.
This is the first art shelter that we did, and sometimes the city of Boise has quite a few on Vista and the bench area. And then we partnered with the city of Caldwell for this one, and then there are 2 in the city of Meridian. So in every case, we partnered with an organization to help find local artists, and there's, you know, in addition to beautifying the space and providing a really good space for riders, there's been study after study that shows public art presence, reducing vandalism rates and things of that nature. So it's a really pretty good investment in our industry.
And this is the local artist. He is from Caldwell. The art itself depicts some of the history of Caldwell. You can see this one has a solar array on top, so it's lighted. Those are really important. There's lots to like about this bus stop.
Yeah. If anyone wants to dive into a public art project with us, we're happy to. I threw this one in last minute. This is a new one that just went in over by the Fort Boise. It's one of our Fort Boise stops, but just shows what happens at night when there's really good lighting, which is a critical element to some of these stops.
And one of the things this one shows, so one of the other land use items that all of you can be aware of as you look at the routes where we serve today or we plan to serve, the pad itself and the shelter are not in the right of way. They're outside the right of way. In this case, it's publicly owned because it's over by the Fort Boise Center. And so getting the land for that pad was a little easier than usual. But if you have a development that's going in somewhere near, even if there's not service today, or even if there's not a improved bus stop there today, if you can at least get the easement for a pad, if there is no service, or at best actually get the pad poured by the developer, then it's really easy for us to provide this service. If we have to go through a right of way or a land take, we try not to use eminent domain. I don't think we ever have. And so sometimes it gets really difficult just to get a 6x6 or a 6x12 pad outside of the right of way, even if it's land that could be easily used for that.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. You can go ahead and read through that. But you know, this is a very important discussion to have, because it's more than just a matter of establishing these very groups. We need to make sure that people can safely access that, because if they can't, I can tell you from experience that they're not going to do it unless they absolutely have to. I have ridden the bus with people who they're determined, they're going to ride the bus, they're going to make this work, but then they have something happen where their safety is at risk, and they're like, done, I'm not doing it. So this is essential. The last thing I wanted to say, referred to collaboration earlier and just how important that is. Compass has predicted that by the year 2050, we're going to have 1.1 million people in the Treasure Valley. 1.1 million people. And I know that we can all talk about that traffic on the interstate, even though they've been widening it, how horrific it has become in the last, I even say just 2 years. It has become so bad between Canyon County and Ada County. So it is really important that we work on public transit, whatever form it is that we end up taking, right? Rails being considered, the various bus lines. And, you know, something that's going to lead to that success is that collaboration. That is somebody who attends a lot of meetings and listens to a lot of city council meetings. I can attest to that there has been a great increase of collaboration between partner agencies and municipalities. You know, I can make a reference to ACHD working with VRT, I think just like maybe 20 years ago, to submit their priorities for the 5-year work plan. ACHD recognizing that people need to get to and from their bus stop safely. The city of Caldwell and the city of Napa, you all just did, was it 2 weeks ago? Did a joint meeting with VRT. I mean, that's collaboration. And that collaboration is going to lead to the success of a public transit system in the Treasure Valley, which we are going to need. We don't want to end up to be like, I'm just going to say it, Los Angeles. I had a daughter who lived in Los Angeles. We were going to send her there without a car, being like, if mama's taking the bus, you're taking the bus. And then I met somebody from Los Angeles and said, you can't send her down to Los Angeles without a car. The public transit is horrible. And she's not going to be able to get to where she's going. And he was right. We don't want to end up like Los Angeles, where we're so spread out that there is no other option but for people to drive. And that's a whole nother problem. So anyway, thank you so much. Appreciate this opportunity to share. Does anybody have any questions, comments? No? Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you for your questions throughout also. That was great. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You can't tell that Mary Beth is passionate.
I'm so passionate.
We appreciate it. These are and Andrew and Teresa, these are, we think, the kinds of folks that will help you be better board members. And that's why they're on the rack. So, Kyle, did we have a presentation on this next?
It's not a presentation, it's an information item.
Yeah.
I was gonna get Jason back, but
I have a question.
Okay, page 140.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Okay, something else, Andrew, go ahead.
Is there an update by chance on the op-ed I wrote?
Say that again.
Is there an update? May I get an update after the meeting on the op-ed I wrote?
On what?
And I'll bet.
That I wrote a long time ago.
We'll talk about it
Okay.
afterwards. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I think Stephen's gonna bring this, while he's bringing it up, it's page 140 in your packet. If you do have one, this is just a summary of the timeline of our budget process, and Kyle, you are in.
actually, I'll just read out the shoulder. I wanted to make sure I had Wednesdays, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so each year we get to a point where we're able to send cooperative agreements out to the various organizations and jurisdictions. That takes place late September to October. By that point, we should have had open discussions with each of the jurisdictions, and there are a series of events that we do in order to get to that point where we feel comfortable sending a cooperative agreement that we can all agree on. But what's different about this year is that we were able to publish the Transportation Development and Operations Plan, which is going to be critically important, especially for these mayors and anyone that's seeing a funding request come through an organization. So Jason got to it. I was hoping to go a little bit slower to the website. So you just go to about.
Yeah.
And then go to planning projects. We'll also provide the link. And then it should be under planning projects for the transportation development and operations plan. So I'm about to get to the series of events that we're about to do over the next few months, but on page 7 of that transportation development and operations plan, that is where you're going to be able to see what we have laid out for you as far as what we're expecting for funding request, what we're expecting to present to you for funding requests. So it's a really easy one pager for you to go take a look at, get up to page 7.
So the plan has been reorganized to show the reason why on many of these. And then what this page does is summarize what we expect the request to be like. This is a starting point. And in fact, since we developed this, we've discovered we needed to update some stuff in Canyon County. We're going to come to the full board next month with a proposed amendment on that to recognize a different split of service on the on-demand system. But this should give everyone an opportunity to better plan what to expect VRT to request of you. As you all know, our budget process is unlike any other organization in the state. We only get voluntary contributions. We don't have a dedicated funding source. And so it's immensely important that our communication and conversation with you is early, often, and transparent. And we hope that the way that we've organized this document will help with that. Sorry.
No, you're good. So that was, as Elaine mentioned, you'll see numbers. We're trying to get them as close as possible to those. And with any changes Elaine mentioned, we want to be able to point those out to you, or a board action is necessary, then we want to just be its own communication. So that was the transportation operations plan. But as far as timeline goes, it's the same as last year. So February through March, all of our department heads are working on their budgets. They have great experience with what they needed year over year. So we've been able to fine tune those, get those estimations for budgets as tight as possible. So we're working on that right now. And then March through April is whenever I will be putting those into the cost allocation model. So that full budget will go in there, and then it'll disperse those expenses out to jurisdictions based off of route hours and miles. And once we do that, then I can send preliminary assessment letters to each organization and jurisdiction. And that'll lay out the 4 categories that we have for expenses. Hopefully we get questions back from you asking, how does this compare to last year and what goes into the capital, which is all laid out in the transportation development operations plan as well. And then we respond to those funding requests, funding partner questions with comments, and send formal funding requests to partners. This is not a cooperative agreement, but it is, it's after we've had those initial discussions, preliminary funding requests, we want to have something in between that and our cooperative agreements that we would be sending out. And then June through August is typically where we sit through any necessary city council meetings, answer emails, set up individual meetings, and that should all lead to a successful September, early October, in which our chief financial officer sends out those cooperative agreements that require signatures, and that way we can start getting billing set up.
So for the bigger partners, the Boise, Meridian, Yamba, Caldwell, CWI, BSU in particular, and then the 2 counties, because your budgets And your budget process typically precedes this schedule just a little bit compared to some of the smaller communities. We'd look to come to your city councils likely in April or at the latest in May as you're setting your own budgets. Once we've communicated what the need is so that we can have a discussion about whether or not how that fits within your budget, what it does, and have any negotiations that we need. So especially for those larger partners, look for us to continue to be in touch and expect us to hopefully be able to come and address your city council in a work session before you actually have your budget hearing, likely in April or May.
Perfect. Any questions? Let me know. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anybody online have questions? Shares on and. Okay. All right, moving on to the last item.
Yeah, so first in your packet is the procurement calendar. If anyone has questions about that, as always, please speak up. It's there so that you understand what contracts we have upcoming that we'll be doing RFPs on, and that you'll then see in a board meeting in the future as a request for funding approval. So now, Stephen, there he is. Now we're going to do a tour of Main Street. So one of the reasons we wanted to bring you down here today is we know that with the exception maybe of Mary Beth, most of you don't get down here all the time and don't know all of the things that happen in this building. It's actually a pretty amazing site. And for a system our size, it's a really unique asset to have this underground station. It's been so beneficial to the city of Boise to take the 12 buses that used to congregate on Main and Idaho and all of the noise and confusion and sidewalk congestion off of the street and put them over here where we have various amenities, both for riders and drivers. So now we'll take a short tour of the station. You're free to leave your stuff here. It'll be safe. We'll come back. If you haven't eaten lunch yet, you can grab one and either stay here and eat or take one with you. But really excited that you're all here today so we can show off some of the things. Before we start, I'll note that as we were doing the charging infrastructure project, we also, the station is 10 years old this year. Unbelievably, I was on city council when we worked so hard to get it built, and it's hard for me to fathom that it's been that long, but it has. As a result, there were a lot of other updates that needed to happen. So we've been able to completely refinish the floors. The floors were kind of a mess. So as you walked in, and the concrete now is not only all clean, but really well done. We've repainted almost everything, including this wall. You might, if you have been down here before, you might remember it used to be bright orange. We think the blue is a little more calming.
Well, that's bright orange.
And we'll be talking about it as we do the tour. We'll also be redoing some of the artwork that at 10 years old, some of it needs some maintenance, and one piece we're actually going to refresh. So this really an exciting time for us to have this asset and be able to revitalize it in a way that we think is going to serve this for not just another decade, but for decades to come. These tables we purchased so we can do events out in the Bay. We did one already in February. It worked remarkably well. There'll be conference tables in here in the near future. We've got them ordered. They'll be more like the conference tables in the boardroom in Meridian. So, and the ones that we had here originally, these were not terribly well built and just didn't stand up to much use. So 10 years on, we're replacing them with ones that we think will last a while. Anyway, with that, I'll turn it over to Stephen.
Thanks, everybody. So this will be a walking tour. And
Oh, okay. Before we leave, we do need to adjourn the meeting. So when we come back, everybody just leave.
So I'll just say, meeting's adjourned. That's all.
Sorry. Thank you.